Thank you, David. Thank you, band. We got great music, just like Sally said. Thank you, Amika, for holding High Watch today. We always have a practitioner, at least one, in this room that holds the energy for us so that we can do this. So we don't have to worry about anything else. They've got it handled. All we have to do is be present. I love that. In fact, I love practitioners. And I'm very excited to share with you today that our 7 practitioner second-year students are no longer students. They have graduated. Could they stand up to receive these applause, those that are in the room? Well done. Let me tell you about their journey. They had about a 50-word final exam they had to do, and 4 narratives that they had to write, essays they had to write. Of all those questions, they collectively, all 7 of them together, got 3 wrong answers. Isn't that extraordinary? And when I pointed them out to the folks that made those errors, they immediately knew what the right answer was. So it was just a momentary glitch. It's amazing people doing great work, so we're very, very proud of them. They have one more hurdle. They have to actually go to Raleigh next month and sit for oral panels, which means they are sit before a minister and a couple practitioners who will decide if they get licensed. Now, the cool thing is that we have the practitioner candidates from Raleigh coming here. So, it's called reciprocity. It's all working out perfectly. Anyway, I just wanted to acknowledge you guys for your amazing work, and thank you. So the inspiration that came to me out of this work with these people is that they have been studying, get this, between 4 and 10 years to get to this point. And the thing that they have been doing is preparing to demonstrate. They're already demonstrating, but they're preparing to do it with a license. So this idea of demonstration is an important key element in our teaching of the science of mind. And we're going to explore what that means. But before we do that, I'm probably going to push your buttons. You're okay with that, right? I'm doing it intentionally. But I want you to know I did not install your buttons, although I do know how to push them. What I want to begin with is talking about some recent research that was done, studying people who are members of any group within the United States that claims to be oppressed or victimized. And when you total up all the people in all those groups in the United States, the sum total approaches 340% of the American population. Now, you got to be asking, how is that possible? That was my question. How is that possible? And I thought about it. I'm going to read you the names of some of these groups that would have gotten counted in this 340%. People of African descent, people of Mideastern descent, people of Asian descent because they too easily get into our higher education institutions. Indigenous Americans, Jews, Muslims, Christians, especially fundamentalists, undocumented migrants, Sikhs because they wear turbans, people with little formal education, educated elites, millennials, the elderly because of how they drive, people in prison, people that used to be in prison, people with gambling addiction, people who abuse alcohol, people who abuse drugs, people who are not heterosexual, people who are heterosexual for not supporting those that are not heterosexual. Transgendered people, they had to get their own category. Socialists, by conservatives. Liberals, by conservatives. Conservatives, by the news media, social media, us, and some people in the IRS and the FBI. Women, for upsetting the traditional social norms of our culture. White men, for obtaining the idea of toxic masculinity. Southerners by Northerners, Northerners by Southerners, people from California, they call that the left coast. Rich people for having too much, poor people for wanting too much help, people who go into bankruptcy, people who are pro-choice, and people who are pro-life. And on and on and on it goes. You notice I did that without mentioning politics once. Why would that be? Why would it be that all these people, not everyone in those groups, but many in those groups, would feel oppressed or victimized in this country? Freest country on the planet. How is it that they would feel so victimized? Well, what I've come to understanding about that is that it is much easier to blame someone for your life not working than it is to take responsibility for it. In this teaching, we understand that it's our responsibility to make our lives work. Apparently the general public doesn't always see it that way. And here's one of the things, the symptoms that comes out of that kind of attitude. I have another list. This is a list of people who filed lawsuits. After falling asleep in class and being awakened by a teacher smacking her hand down on the desk, the parents of a 16-year-old sued the Connecticut Board of Education for their son's loss of hearing. Oh, I'm just getting started. A convicted Virginia felon sues himself for $5 million, claiming that his crime was against his own morals and that he had violated his own civil liberties. But because he had no money, he suggested that the state should pay his claim. An Israeli woman sued a television station for making an inaccurate weather prediction. They said that it would be sunny and it rained. This apparently resulted in her dressing lightly and catching the flu. In 1992, a 72-year-old woman, you've heard this one, in Albuquerque spilled her McDonald's coffee in her lap, sued McDonald's for $3 million, claiming that they should have put a warning on the cup. In 2006, an Oregon man filed a case against Michael Jordan for the emotional trauma he suffered as a result of looking like Michael Jordan. A woman in Austin, Texas, sued a grocery store chain for damages when she tripped over a toddler who was running amok in the store. Yes, the toddler was her son. A man saved his wife's life by giving her one of his kidneys. When they divorced several years later, he demanded his kidney back. Or $1.5 million, whichever she chose. In 2005, two teenage girls wanted to surprise their neighbors with home-baked cookies. One neighbor accepted the cookies, but sued the girls, claiming that their knocks on her door instigated an anxiety attack the next day. Music publishers for the late John Cage sued another musician in 2002 for having a track on his album consisting of nothing but silence. Apparently, Cage also had a silent track on one of his albums, which the publisher claimed was copyrighted. And in 2010, a convicted felon filed suit against the former hostages just before his arrest for not helping him escape the police, claiming that they had failed to uphold a legally binding verbal contract to do so. Yes. That's what it leads to when you want to blame other people for what's going on in your life. It's not reasonable. It's not how it works. Our job is to take responsibility for our lives and to create our lives. And we do that through this thing called demonstration. We're demonstrating our lives all the time. And we are 100% responsible for that. So what I want to do is look at this idea of demonstration and what it means. And Holmes has given us a definition. Let's look at that. Through the mental and spiritual activity of thought directed toward a definite end, we bring about a greater good, a more abundant life, and a better condition than before. We demonstrate at the level of our ability to know. That's a beautiful definition, but it's missing a word. And the word is conscious. Conscious demonstration is what he's talking about. And that's what we do. When you go to a practitioner, they demonstrate in your life through the power of their affirmative prayer, spiritual mind treatment. This is not the only demonstration that's going on in your life. So I wrote a flip side definition for unconscious demonstration. Try this on. Through the mental activity of thought directed toward the things we fear and resist, we bring about a condition that mirrors the focus of our mental state. In so doing, we unconsciously demonstrate at the level of doubt and failure. So which way do you think most people spend most of their time? In a conscious state of demonstration or an unconscious? This one. This one. And as much as I'd like to tell you otherwise, so do we. Too often, get reactive to life and do it different than would best serve us. And that gets in our way. It gets in our way when we go unconscious and let our reactive mind take over. Then we find ourselves in a mess of trouble. But we don't have to. It's not how it works that we have to feel those things. But here's what most people think. You know the term reality? Most people think that they perceive reality. And they believe their perceptions are accurate. But what's true is that the term perception and the term reality are synonymous. They mean the same thing. They mean exactly the same thing. So, whatever you are receiving as information about the life that's happening around you, the world that's happening around you, you're perceiving it. It's running through all the filters in your mind, and what's coming out is your reality. And you're absolutely convinced that's absolutely the way it is. Even though someone can be standing right next to you, experience an event, and have an entirely different take on it when it goes through their mind filters. So the question is, what's real? And the answer is, whatever you make real. And we wonder why we can't communicate. We wonder why there's so many disruptions to lives on planet Earth. It's because we have a different sense of reality. We're coming at it from a different place. We're basing it on everything that we've learned and known throughout our entire lives. And when we do that, we end up with this skewed sense that we call absolutely the truth. With a capital T, we think that's the way it is. One of the wrong answers on the practitioner test was when one of the students, in reading the multiple choice answers, it said, which best describes truth? And C was, whatever a practitioner says when they do a treatment. And they said yes to that. And that's not accurate. There's lots of people that treat through their skewed reality, and what comes out of that is something other than what they think they want. We all have things that we want. The challenge is that through that reality that we're having and that idea right there, you don't often get it. You get something else because there's something underlying what you're thinking. There's something beyond what you're asking that practitioner to treat and know with you that you haven't addressed and you haven't looked at and I haven't thought about because it's not screaming at you like the thing that you want is. You know, you want that new car, you want that new relationship, you want that new job, whatever it is, you want it. And you're absolutely convinced that by getting it, your life's going to turn around, everything's going to be great. That's not how it works. It works very, very differently than that. And what we need to look at here is an example of how that works and how we do that. There are things in life that bug us, right? Anyone want to deny that there aren't people or situations that get on your nerves? Of course they do. What do you do with that? Well, you complain, you whine, you blame, you judge, you don't like it. Well, in this teaching, that'll take you there to a place of doubt and failure. Where do you want to go? I want to be happy. I want to be free. I want to have my life work. That's not the path. When you get on that path, you're stuck with being abused and being annoyed and being aggravated and being just generally pissed off. Can I say that? Okay. That is not where you want to go. So what can you do differently? Well, treatment's an option. So what if, instead of being annoyed, you treated knowing that that person in your life was wonderful, was kind, was generous, was friendly, was interesting, whatever it is you want. What are you changing? If you believe that, you're shifting yourself, which is what you do in treatment. It's not about the other person. You're not treating them, you're treating yourself. That's something that we always have to go through at the beginning of practitioner training. In Prac 1 is that when it says, and it says this in the textbook, the practitioner treats the practitioner. And some people go, well, there's nothing wrong with me, it's them. I should treat them. No, you treat yourself to see that in them. Because the truth is that those things are already in them. You just can't see them because you've decided through your perception that that's the way it is, that they are this terrible person. Whereas if you treat knowing that they are wise, that they are kind, that they are caring, whatever it is you want to call it, whatever calls you to know, several things happen. The first thing that happens is you feel better because you're not aggravated by them anymore. The second thing that happens is their behavior actually shifts. Now, maybe it doesn't shift, but you're seeing them differently. And that perception is way more important than what's going on over there, because everyone in your life is a reflection of your consciousness. So whatever is going on with them is going on with you. So if you treat this knowing that it's different, you're going to get a different result. You just have to. How it happens, actually how it works, I don't know, but it does. I've done it so many times. And you know, there's this thing that we say here is that as practitioners, we do not treat for someone other than one asking. But again, understand, the practitioner is treating the practitioner. So if you're going to treat, that's what's going on, is you're treating yourself, even if your focus happens to be another person. And from that, you will get a different result. Now, it may take a little time, depends on how strong your consciousness is and your willingness to know what you're saying is real. As soon as you can convince yourself it's real, then it gets to be real. And then suddenly that God being that has been annoying the holy moly stuff out of you suddenly is okay. I can be okay with this. And you move on to the next person that's bugging you. And you do it with them. This is how we move from one place to another, is by simply seeing and knowing the truth. It's all in the knowing. It's all in how you perceive it. Your reality is your reality. If you have things going on around you that you don't like, change your reality, change your perception, change your understanding of what's happening. Take charge of it. You're in charge. You're 100% responsible for the conditions of your life, including those conditions. There may be a book in this. Yeah. There was a book once written about it that was entitled How to Change Another Person. And you opened it up, and the first thing it said, you can't change anybody else. And then it went on to talk about other things. So I don't want to do that. I really think that there's something to this, because we are really responsible for our lives. So I've been talking about this thing called treatment, and I know that some of you in the room probably don't know what that is. So let's talk about it. Let's see what Ernest Holmes said about that. He said that spiritual mind treatment is the art, the act, and science of consciously inducing thought within universal subjectivity, the creative medium which responds to us through correspondence. Now that's going to require a little bit of interpretation. You may not know some of those words. Universal subjectivity is the mind of God. It's the vehicle, and I'm not going to stand here and tell you that I understand how it works, but it is the method or the medium through which our thought becomes form in our lives. It does that, as it says there, through correspondence, meaning that whatever you're thinking is what you're seeing and hearing and experiencing, what it looks like outside of you. But the truth is, it's all happening inside of you. You're a reflection of me, and I'm a reflection of you. And I know that disturbs some of you, but I am. Treatment. This idea of stopping and centering yourself and knowing something consciously. Yes, it's a 5-step process, but there are plenty of treatments that aren't 5 steps. I remember once that Barbara was in Orlando visiting her son and his family, and she was going through an intersection, and there was a semi-truck barreling right down on her as she's moving into the intersection, and so is this truck. And she yelled, "No." And she doesn't know how this worked, but the truck did not hit her and she did not hit the truck. They both made it through the intersection. Impossible. Doesn't matter. That's what happened. Her treatment was no. Okay, there's lots of ways to treat. So don't feel like you have to go into a methodology to have an effective treatment. All you have to do is be conscious. All you have to do is be certain that what you are saying and what you are knowing is absolutely so. And if you are, and you like what you're seeing, that's the key. If you like what you're seeing, then that will be the outcome. Now, most people think that this idea of treatment is about getting something. And I will point out that it is. It is often about the demonstration that we're talking about can include the car or the house or the relationship or the job or really anything else that you want to create. But as I've already mentioned, and I just want to reiterate this because it's really important to understand, is if there is an underlying dysfunction that is causing you to want that thing in your life, it won't go away. That itch will not go away, no matter what you demonstrate as stuff. And I happen to like stuff, so this isn't an anti-stuff conversation. It's just that stuff in itself will not enlighten you. Here's an example. How many of you remember a man who lived here in Asheville called Chad O'Shea? Great. He was a minister over at Unity for many years. He was the minister that Barbara and I went to when we came to Asheville in 1990. Chad was a really interesting guy, and he gave one talk one day that absolutely dazzled me. It was his own story. He was an outdoorsman type. He loved to golf. He loved to fish. And he talked about being a little boy and having a cane pole with a little hook on a string, and he'd go dig up some worms, and he'd go out to the edge of the lake near his home, and he would fish with that. And then one day, somebody came out there to fish with a rod and reel. He could only go as far as his cane would to try to catch a fish. But this other guy, he could cast that thing way out there and pull it in, and he was catching more fish. Chad had to go get himself one of those, and he did. So he's out on the edge of the lake. He's casting. He's feeling really good about it. And a guy comes by in a rowboat. He goes right out into the middle of the lake and casts. Certainly he's catching more fish than Chad. Chad, I got to get one of those. So he did. Out into the lake he goes. Didn't take long before somebody went by with a motorboat. Whoa, look at that. He can go anywhere he wants right away. I got to have one of those. Sure enough, he went and got one of those. He's out in the lake having a good time till the day a boat goes by with 2 outboard motors. You can see where this is going. There's always something more to want. There's always something out there that's going to make me whole. It's going to make me do the very best that I can. That's not it. That's really not it. Again, I don't mind stuff. Stuff's kind of cool. But don't think it's going to heal you. Don't think it's going to fix your life. Don't think it's going to answer all of your problems. That's an inside job. That has nothing to do with the stuff you've got in your life. Another little story about stuff. You've heard of this, of the store Neiman Marcus? Probably one of the 2 or 3 most expensive stores I've ever been in. I used to live in Houston, Texas many years ago, and I remember being in Neiman Marcus. Everything was overpriced. It was quite amazing. So when they opened, and they are a Texas corporation, their first store, I think, was in Dallas. And when their store had opened, it was still pretty new. One day, a Texas farmer came in. He was in his overalls and a T-shirt and had his work boots on. He was just kind of shuffling around, looking at things in the store. And the employees started being concerned. What is this guy doing? So someone went over and said, "Pardon me, sir, can we help you?" No. He said, "Well, you're looking for something in particular?" "No, I'm just looking around." He said, "Well, if we could help you at all, we'd be glad to do that." He said, "Well, I'm just amazed by this place." He said, "I've never been in a place that had so much stuff that nobody needs." A different perception. A different perception. So again, I'm not telling you not to have nice things in your life. That's wonderful. Have all the nice things you want. But don't think that they're making a difference in your spiritual journey of awakening. They're not. That's not what it's about. What it's about is you finding your way through life. These people in your life that bug you, these situations that leave you disturbed, are your call within yourself to awaken to a higher understanding of who you are, to open up to the possibility that you really are creating your life, top to bottom, left to right, inside out. It's all about you and who you are and what you're bringing to life. And that when you get that understanding and you change the conditions in your life, you recognize that, and it empowers you to do more, to be more, to understand more clearly the importance of being here on planet Earth. These things we have called perceptions create our reality. And it takes all of us and all of our different realities to find the evolutionary way for us on planet Earth to be all that we've come to be and to do all that we've come to do. It's your job for you. And I know you can do it. I have no doubt at all. The trick is to take responsibility for your life without exception. And not take responsibility for other people's lives. That's for them. And not to be bothered by them when they do something that wouldn't be the way you'd do it. Because in their world, they are absolutely accurate and correct about how things are. And they're as entitled to that as you are. So there's something about this non-attachment that actually calls us into a more powerful place in our lives, where we can be the ones we've come to be, where we can do the things that we've come to do, where we can demonstrate according to our understanding of the presence of God within. And from that, you and I will have the lives that we so desire. Sound like a deal? Yeah. All right, let's do it. Thank you. I love you.